everyone, and welcome to this demonstration of Nurture for the English classroom in Australia. In this session, we are going to have a look at how to install Nurture, how to set up your curriculum boundary, how to create tasks, how to generate feedback, and of course, how to generate grades. And all of this is done with Nurture, which aims to reduce workload for teachers and improve student outcomes. So, let's have a look. First of all, we'll just have a quick look again at how we install Nurture. So to install Nurture, we simply select the plus icon at the top of our channel. We will then select Nurture and then we just get the option to install the app. That's it. That's how simple it is. There's no need for students to install Nurture. Once it's installed by the teacher, all students get access to it within the team, okay? You'll then be brought, once you have it installed for the first time, you will be asked to answer a series of questions to kind of set up some context for Nurture. This can also be accessed, so if you've already installed Nurture and want to get back here, you simply select the settings cog and then go to classroom settings, okay? So questions that you're asked include what subject it is, your role, and then you're asked your curriculum. So here you'll see that I've uploaded a number of curricular documents. So these include a test list, they also include curriculum overview, scope and sequence, any types of plans that we have or government documents would all go up here, okay? The idea of this is because this as though feeds the brain of our Nurture assistant, which is Nurture's AI later on. So as we know, AI leverages information off of the internet to respond with human-like intelligence, but it can sometimes miss out on context. So one of the ways that we introduce context in order to make our assistant more accurate is by allowing you to upload documents particular to your curriculum in your country in order to make the outputs of the assistant far more accurate and also helpful later on, okay? So just to note as well that there is a limit of 10 documents here, so you can cycle documents in and out as needed, or you can also use a tool like PDF Combine to combine documents in order to get as much information in there as you'd like. So that is our curriculum boundary. Having a look then at generating our tasks. So to generate a task, I would simply select New Task. I have the option then to create a graded assessment or an ungraded assessment. You'll also see here that I have the option to input a task code. So for example, if I go back here to this previous assessment, I have this share button. When I select share, I have a shareable code here. I can copy that and I can paste it into my task creation tool here. If I just go like this, I can literally copy that task then from earlier, so everything will be populated here, okay? But for the purposes of this, I'm actually going to use a different, I'm going to use the graded formative assessment and do it from scratch. So the first thing that I'm asked is what I would like this assessment to be about. So when I'm creating one from scratch, it would go something like this. So I'm going to say 2 short essay questions, one on character and one on theme, on the Great Gatsby, worth 25 marks each. Must include an introduction, okay, so that's an example of the level of detail that we would provide this first prompt. So you'll see that I've quite a good bit of detail there. Then select the style of questions that I'd like. So essay style question, 50 marks. And then most importantly, I'm going to toggle this curriculum boundary piece. So what this is going to do, this means that when my assessment is created, it's going to leverage information off of that curriculum boundary that I have in the background, those curricular documents that I've just uploaded, okay? Now this is creating a task from scratch with the Nurture Assistant. We also understand that a lot of teachers might have assessments that they use year on year that they've already created, or maybe they've worksheets that they've used for years. So if you'd like to use those within Nurture, you could simply select Skip Assistant and create this task manually and copy in that information and use your Nurture Assistant then to enhance that process later on, okay? So you don't have to create it from scratch. You can also kind of input it and use your Nurture Assistant to enhance it. So if I go generate task then, It's going to have generated a task description, but also get an insight into that nurture assistant that I just referred to and how that might help us with our creating a task manually. Okay, so here we have our task description, etc. So first of all, I see that the assistant has generated a task here for me. So question one, discuss the character development of Jay Gatsby in The Great Gatsby. Should include an introduction, 3 paragraphs, highlighting key points, and a conclusion. Lovely, love that. So again, just that example of if we were using this manually, so you would literally type in your task description here, but you could use the nurture assistant here on the right hand side to kind of help you further. So one example of how I could do that here is I could say in the task description, provide detailed guidelines to the students, how they should answer, register they should use, word count, etc. Okay, so this then is just going to, as I've instructed it to, generate some further guidelines or scaffolds for my students and include that in the task description. So if we're doing this manually, we would copy in the information manually, and then we could use the nurture assistant in the same way to kind of enhance it. Very good. So I'm just going to say yes here. All right. So the task description, obviously the students will be able to see that as that is details about their task. Then we have the upload attachment button. So the idea of this is somewhere that we can upload resources that the students can see in order to guide them in the right direction. So for example, I might upload a PowerPoint that I created on The Great Gatsby here, or maybe some notes that we covered in class. And this then is going to help the students to guide them in what resource they should be looking at in answering or responding to this task. Okay, the learning outcomes then, the assistant has generated these for us. The student again sees this. We have the option as well, if we want to like add new outcomes manually, if we want to delete them, we can also reshuffle them so they're in different orders, etc. So all of this is always malleable as well by the teacher. The assistant will never go off and do something that you won't be able to change. Okay, then we have our grading. So at the moment, students cannot see marking schemes, rubrics, etc. But we are working on an option where the teacher can select if they would like the students to see marking schemes and rubrics, etc. But at the moment, they can't. So how this works is, we see first of all, the assistant has created the following marking scheme for us. So we have our marking scheme on character here, but also what I could do is, if I have an existing marking scheme, I could upload that as an attachment, and the assistant would grade based on this uploaded document later on. But very important, if I'm doing that, I need to make sure that I delete this marking scheme, okay? So I would need to make sure that the marking scheme the assistant has generated is deleted if I'm uploading a document, just in case the two were in conflict and it might confuse our assistant in its grading. But for now, I'm going to keep the one that the assistant has generated there. I have the same option for a rubric, so if I have a rubric that I've used for this assessment previously, or if I've created myself, I would simply upload that here and that will inform my grading later on. But again, I would need to delete the marking scheme that's been created by the assistant. I then select what due date I'd like to put on it, and that's it. That is how I create my task with the Nurture Assistant. So I'm just going to go back here, and now we are going to look at grading the student work and generating feedback. Quick note as well on what this looks like from the student side. So once the teacher has created a task, that task will be pushed out to all students in the class. So they will get a notification in posts, and they will also obviously get a notification in their nurture. Okay, so the student will see that the task is being created. The student answers that task or completes that task. They upload it as a Word document or PDF. They're asked to rate their confidence. So we see here we have our student confidence score here. So how confident they felt in creating the task. And they're also encouraged to do a reflection on submission. Okay, we'll see this throughout. The reflection on submission is very important, not just for the student in developing their ability to self-analyze and self-evaluate, but also it gives further context to the assistant on how a student might feel about an assessment and therefore informs the assistant on how to respond, okay? One other important thing to do, so after you've created your task, go into this side and just do this customize the nurture assistant piece, okay? So that's one little tip for me is after you've created your task, immediately customize your nurture assistant. And how I access that is just my feedback settings here. So what this essentially is this is like a master prompt for your nurture assistant on how to shape and create the feedback based on your needs for every single student. So, for example, I have asked the assistant here to create feedback that is specific to the student and not too verbose, produce feedback in bullet points, generate the feedback in language suitable for a student with a reading age of 12, okay? So there might be other little variations that you might have on that, but the idea of putting this in before our students upload their work is because as the students upload their work, the assistant will automatically analyze the student's work. But if you set your customized nurture assistant feedback after the nurture assistant has analyzed the student's work, that those customizable pieces won't kick into action. One way around that is that we can reset the chat, which I'll go through in a moment. So let's have a look at a student's piece of work. So if I navigate to this student here, so first of all, I see from the color code here, I see that the student had neutral confidence on this. They have a lovely comment here. I really struggle with poetry, don't get what language means. I'd like if we could do a brainstorm on the board like we did last time, or get a sample answer to understand what to write and how to write it in these questions. I would open up the student's work then and obviously have a look at it, and then I would navigate to the nurture assistant then, see what the nurture assistant has said on the student's work. So it responds with what the student needs feedback on, and then the suggested personal comment. So the nurture assistant will always structure the feedback according to what went well and even better if, unless you override that and ask it to generate it in a different way in the customized feedback section. So, for example, the assistant has said the student has strong use of quotations and they used relevant evidence. Even better if there's a bit more clarity in the structure, okay? So I'm going to say, it'll ask me, would I like to set this as the student's personal comment? So I'm going to say yes. And then the assistant will respond and ask me if it would like to grade the work. So it will grade the work based off of the marking scheme it's created earlier, or the one I've uploaded, or the rubric. So in this case, I have a rubric uploaded in the background, okay? So would you like me to proceed with grading the student's work? Yes. Just to note as well, so if I had set my customizable feedback after the students had uploaded their work and needed to reset my chat, I would select this button here. And if I would like to update my customizable feedback as I go along, I would set the feedback settings piece here and I will get access to that again, okay? So the nurture assistant then has repeated back the rubric I've uploaded in the background and explains why it is giving the student X amount of marks per section. So for example, for explanation of theme, the student identifies the theme of war, however, the explanation lacks depth and a clear connection to the challenge posed to readers. So therefore 3 out of 5 there. So total grade 13 out of 25, so I'm going to say that I agree with this. You'll notice as well, as I converse with the nurture assistant, it will populate these areas then on the left hand side. So first of all, the nurture assistant has selected what learning outcomes the student needs feedback on here, okay? It has also now populated the personal comment, as I've agreed with that, and it has then populated the points that the student needs, okay? I've the option here as well to add attachments. So for example, the student here asked for a sample answer that could better help them. So I might actually upload the best quality work that another student has produced here. So I might upload the work for peer here and literally respond with that resource for the student, okay? So then all I would do is I would just navigate from that student to the next student and complete the process. Very important then when there's a common misconception that as you create the feedback for the students that it's automatically pushed out to them, which is not the case. Very important, once you've gone through all of the students, scroll to the bottom of your screen and select this big purple publish feedback button. The reason that we push the feedback out to the students all at the same time is because in a regular classroom environment where you're manually creating feedback and manually grading students' work, if you handed back work in dribs and drabs to students, so two students get their work this day, two students get their work the next day, there would be total mayhem. So for equality and all of the rest of it, we have this publish feedback button, which means all the students get their feedback and their grade at the same time. On the student end, when the student will get their feedback first, they have to reflect on it then in order to unlock their grade. The teacher also gets this really clever infographic on what exact learning outcomes the students have struggled with, and this is really helpful in closing the feedback loop and in driving that learning forward. As the teacher designs their next lesson, they can understand, okay, the learning outcomes I need to work on particularly are the analysis of themes in Wilfred Owen's poetry and evaluating poetic devices. So the student might do some recall on that, or they might create or provide resources to the students in order to address those misconceptions and drive the learning forward. So if you have lasted the whole 16 minutes of this tutorial, thank you. I hope you have found this helpful. And if you have any questions, please contact emer@gonurture.com. And thanks so much for using Nurture in order to save teachers time and improve student outcomes. Thanks.